Finally, we've gotten buffed by Blizzard. I'm going to talk about it a bit more in depth on this video. There will be two parts. One about Enhancement Shaman with a before and with calculations and mathematics after. And we're going to talk about the overall changes on the meta for PvP. We're also going to talk about PvE changes. But there will be timestamps for people that do not care about Enhancement Shaman, you can just jump right there. But for people that do care about Enhancement Shaman, but also just in general, the tier lists are going to be vastly different because of those buffs. You're going to see that Enhancement Shaman is eating good. We did make a guide 2 days ago, so if you want to check that out, you can always check that out. It is a ultimate guide, so it is more than 1 hour, but I do give a lot of information about Enhancement Shaman, and you could also learn from it to counter Enhancement Shaman in the future. Now let's go right through it. I'm going to go to the parts that are Enhancement Shaman, and then I'm going to jump into the other parts about the other specs, because again, we did make a guide 2 days ago, so I think that is the most relevant currently for me to talk about it. But I'm going to talk about every single change because we do play a lot of classes on this channel. Enhancement Shaman, all damage reduced by 4%. At first I read that and thought, like, that can't be, like 4% less damage on everything, not only like Storm Strike, Elemental Blast, Lightning Bolt, but everything. And then we have like a buff on Elemental Blast by 12%, which kind of enforces you to play around Elemental Blast. 12% is quite big. Like if you did 800k Elemental Blast, it will be 880k, which is quite good. Again, it's an estimate, it could be a bit higher. I think it's 888k or something like that, or 82k, but it would be a significant buff towards Elemental Shaman. Stormbringer, so if you're like hitting 2 guys and you're doing Tempest, it will do 65% damage to the second guy instead of 50%. So in arenas, it's going to be a overall buff. In solo queue RPGs, it's going to most likely be a buff because you're not going to hit 5 targets, except if they're really clumped up, and that would be very good, but that's not going to happen. But if you're hitting beyond 5 targets, which is in PvE, you're going to deal less damage beyond those 5 targets. So overall, a nerf towards like big targets, a mythic plus, like putting everyone together and then do your AoE stuff. But in PvP, it's an overall buff. Totemic has been buffed. I think the biggest buff that would be Totemic would be that Totemic itself would be worn by the Shaman. That would be the biggest buff, because then you don't need to micromanage the totem every single time. But right now, the damage is just increased by 10%, which is quite big because it does a lot of damage. The thing is that it is very hard to micromanage, like I shown you with the ultimate guide. It's very hard to do so. Searing volley damage increased by 80%. It is significant. The only issue I have is Totemic really sucks with PvP and how you have to always micromanage it, and you know, fights are never going to take place at one spot, especially in Enhancement Shaman. Like in open world PvP, you want to run away most likely because you want to heal yourself. You want to like take engagements whenever you feel like it. And Totemic wants you to stick into one place, but other specs want also to kite away. Like a hunter will never stay at one place. So you will have and lose a lot of value because of that. So still PvP, it's no bueno. In PvE, I think it can be played, I guess. I just think like right now I don't really like it because Stormbringer is that much better in every single sense. Now let's talk about the PvP changes, which are the biggest changes that we are currently for any spec, I think. If you read every single change, I will be reading that in the second part of the video. But Enhancement Shaman got a buff on Lava Lash by 60%, which is massive. Like again, the Elementalist build is still eating good. You have Elemental Blast 12% increased damage, and also Lava Lash increased damage by 60%. So that's really a lot of damage. Storm Strike and Wind Strike damage increased by 60% as well, which is the build I prefer to play, which is a physical Stormbringer nature damage build, which is basically around Storm Strike, Wind Fury damage, and also your Frost Shock damage, your Ice Strike damage, your overall Stormbringer damage with your Tempest and Lightning Bolts, for example, and Awakening Storms. That is increased by 60%. So my builds really rely on a lot of Storm Strike. So you want to reset those Storm Strikes as much as you can. We also build haste for that purpose. So obviously that will help a lot. 60% is big. I'm going to show you also in-game. Wind Fury attack damage increased by 60% in PvP combat is also big. Again, on a dummy, but also in PvP combat, it can go up. It's between 50k and I would say 90k, depending if you're bursting, if you have your trinket, if you have like every single modifier on, you can do around 90k per tick. And Wind Fury attacks 3 times. So it could be 90k, 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 which is pretty big for 60% increase. 60% increase would be like around 50, 55, 50k like damage instead of like 40k. So it's pretty massive. It is pretty massive. Instead of 90k, so it would be 90k plus 55 or 90k plus 50k. So it is massive because again it hits 3 times. So that itself is a big buff. But also, since we're playing with Stormstrike and we play with the build with Stormstrike and Wind Fury, you're going to activate it way more than, let's say, if you're playing Elementalist build. So this, I would say, is a bigger buff towards the physical damage build than the Lava Lash build, because the Lava Lash build was already great damage-wise, but it's very hard to stick on targets. And again, if you know, whenever you're playing Enhancement Shaman, if you play the Lava Lash build, you have a big button bloat. And the issue with Lava Lash build is that if you ideally play around a Lava Lash, you want to play Totemic to get the biggest damage possible for Lava Lash. But Totemic really sucks in PvP. Or you could play like Totemic and like just to buff your Lava Lash, but then you lose a lot of the value of what Totemic could bring. And Stormbringer is really cool because Tempest does a lot of damage. Awakening Storms is like increased passive damage overall with your Lightning Bolts, with your Chain Lightnings and Tempest, for example. You don't press too much Storm Strike whenever you're going for the Lava Lash build. You kind of do because you want to have Awakening Storms as well, and you want to do Maelstrom. But it's like a contradicting build that I don't really enjoy too much. I do promote it on the channel, but still the Storm Strike build is the more preferred one for me, which I discussed on the guide as well. Now, that's a lot of theory. How is it in practice? Now I'm going to show you really quickly the damage I do on a dummy. First and foremost, you want to have every single buff on yourself. And I'm going to give you, I would say, the best damage possible, which is having 10 Maelstrom, use it, Feral Spirits, Crash Lightning, because you will get 10% more damage on Storm Strike in PvP, and then do a Storm Strike, and that is the damage that you would do max-wise. So, for example, I'm going to build the Maelstrom really quickly. So I'm going to try to build it, and then I'm going to stop combat. Okay. One more. All right. So we're stopping combat, so we reset it. So if you see already Storm Strike, it hits around 100k without like the Feral Spirits, without like the Crash Lightning. And Feral Spirits are always going to be something you want to get up as much as you want. Now, I'm going to go in combat, so I'm going to do Tempest, Feral Spirits, Crash Lightning, and then I'm going to do a Storm Strike. And I'm going to disregard Tempest. Storm Strike did 167k on the high end, and of course the low end would be 66k, and then the average would be 120k. You can read it on your screen right now. Then you also have your Awakening Storms, which obviously gets procced by your Tempest or your Storm Strike, but I'm going to disregard it for now. Stone Blast hit 2 times there, so we were very lucky with our proc. So we got like on the main hand and off hand, we got our Wind Fury attack that also got procced, which is 36k, normal hit times 3. Again, Wind Fury attack is something you can like increase by doing more Wind Fury attack because of this talent, right? This talent, if you're stacking it up 5 times, it will be 100% more damage. I don't know if in PvP it's nerfed. I'll have to look at it after. I'm going to explain first this. So if you are not critting, so your top end would be 167k, you take 60% of this, so do divided by 10 to get 10%, which would be 16k, and you would also divide by 50, like by 2 to get 50%. So divide to 167, but divided by 2 would be then 83k. 83k plus 16k, which would be, to round it up, 100k. So it would do a top end of 267k top end. And since the offhand is the half of the damage, pretty much, a bit less than half to be fair, it would do around like, again, we have 267k, it would do around 350k, right? So that's a lot of damage. 350k just by doing a Storm Strike. Mind you, Storm Strike is a enabler of a lot of procs. You have your Storm Blast that is also augmented because again, it's 25% increased damage of your Storm Strike. So you take your base Storm Strike, you get the 25% of it. I think it's a bit more even. 25% additional damage as nature damage. And again, nature damage is way better at scaling. So 25% of that is going to be nature damage. So again, if your Storm Strike baseline is augmented, the Storm Blast is also augmented. So that's a big buff as well. Then if you're playing like without Elemental Blast, you have also your Tempest Strike, which is 54k, for example. Then you have also your Fork Lightning, which is a AoE damage. Again, that we can disregard. But you know, as if it's a main hand hit, it also procs Wind Fury. So you see Wind Fury got also 36k normal hit times 3. And that itself is also augmented by 60%. So 107k in total. You take 60% of that. Again, we'll do the same exercise. If you want to have quick math, divided by 10, it is 10k. Divided by 2 for the overall damage, which is 107k divided by 2, would be 53.5k. Plus 10, because that is 10%, it would be then 63.5k. You add it up, it would be around 170k Wind Fury attack. That with just one press of a button. There's a lot of specs that can do the same kind of damage, but for Enhancement Shaman, which it is a builder, it still is a builder in your spender, which is your Lightning Bolts, your Tempest, Elemental Blast if you're playing that, your Chain Lightning, your Healing Surge, because you can also heal yourself with that. It is big. It does a lot of damage. Then you have your Spirit Wolves, then you have your Awakening Storms, that are things that are counted towards your Storm Strike usage, because if you're doing a Storm Strike and it does do a Awakening Storms, I don't get the proc right now, but again, it's massive if you're thinking about it. Now, Wind Fury attack here, it is nerfed, like I said, by 5%, so it would be 75% instead of like 100% increased damage Wind Fury. But if you get like the Wind Fury attack to 5 stacks, it becomes to do way more damage over time. Especially if you're doing Wind Fury, which again augments it by 10%. So overall, I really like the current buff that we got. Obviously, it doesn't change a lot of stuff that I said multiple times in the videos before it, where we have still a lot of button bloat. If you want to eliminate the button bloat, you kind of don't gimp yourself, because I'm not gimping myself by doing that. But obviously, I leave a lot of food on the table to get like the optimization on it. So overall, very happy. It adds up pretty much 160k on the Storm Strike, which is really a lot. Like I did only like one Storm Strike here, and I got like Storm Flurry damage from it with like 4 casts. I got like 4 hits. I got like 386k. You could also do quick maths with that, just 60k, 60% out of that, and that is the damage that you would get from the buff. It would like top it off above 500k. Again, it depends on your feral spirits, it depends on your trinkets, if it got popped up or not. If you have a lot of Storm Flurries from it, if you get also a lot of like those sweet extra procs from your Tempest Strikes, from your Awakening Storms, from your Wind Fury attack. So that overall is a big win. So I do see a change on the tier list. I will be making tier list next week. I was kind of waiting on the changes on PvP because I was 100% sure they're going to nerf and buff some specs. But overall, it's really happy days. It is really happy days. So I look forward to those changes. Now let's talk about the other changes that are also very important. And this is the second part of the video, right? For the people that do not care about Enhancement Shaman, this is now a bit more interesting for you guys. Those are the buffs and nerfs in PvE and PvP. So Frost Decay got nerfed overall in PvE, a bit less in PvP, because Icy Death Torrent is nerfed also in PvP. But in PvE, Frost Strike and Obliterate got nerfed in PvE. And also glacial advanced damage reduced by 10% also in PvE. So 6% for obliterate and frost strike, and glacial advanced by 10%. I think in PvE it is kind of deserved because it does a lot of damage, and you can also cleave very much a lot with your death and decay. And depending on your hero talents, you can have an easier time with Death and Decay because you can do the cleave inside of the Death and Decay from Morgraine, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm like, or Trollbane. I don't remember the horseman that gave you like Death and Decay, but it was like very strong in PvE. Icy Death Torrent is a proc that doesn't proc too much, but whenever it does, and whenever it does it, whenever you need it, it does a lot of damage. It does add up in your burst rotation. Balanced Druid got a overall buff, but also nerf. A buff towards your spendage, so Star Surge and Starfall. Starfall by 20%, Star Surge by 12%, and that's PvP and PvE. Umbral Intensity got nerfed for Wrath and Starfire. Deserved, because it did a lot of damage on their Wrath and Starfire. Now, Star Surge being buffed is overall always going to be a good thing, because they're always going to rely on Star Surges whenever they're going into Eclipse, and that is going to be still massive. And Starfall increase by 20% is quite massive for PvE, but I guess also for RBGs, for example. Harmony of the Heavens, I don't remember if it's a talent or not. I think it's a talent, but increase Eclipse power by 2% per proc, max 6% instead of 1%, so that's a buff. Overall buff for Druids. Like Balance Druid. Blood Tunnels and Lion Strength now also increase the damage of Rampant Ferocity. I think that's more or less a bug fix though, because Rampant Ferocity is the AoE bites pretty much. And now it does apply to those bites. So it will be a AoE buff, most likely, but it's not a PvP, like it's not really a PvP buff for all I know. Devastation Evoker, damage of all spells and ability decreased by 6%. Devastation is doing good. It will do more damage, so that's going to be surprising. Flame Shaper, Shaper is not really a hero talent that you would use in PvP, but I think right now you are going to use it. I think Engulf now does a lot of on-demand damage, and having just a Fire Breath on the enemy and then doing Engulf does a lot. Like it does a lot. It just, obviously it's Fire Breath, so it can be dispelled. It's very annoying, but Engulf itself has like 2 charges. It can do some great amount of damage, and it's really on demand, so you don't need to cast anything. It's just like instant, so it's very, very strong. Firestorm, damage increased by 20%. I think that's more or less a PvE buff, and reduced to 10 seconds instead of 12 seconds. So shorter duration, better damage. Pack Leader, Hunter. So I've been playing a lot of BM Hunter to do a lot of testing, because people were saying, and I also was saying, that BM Hunter is D tier. In open world, it's different than in PvP, BGs, and arenas. I think in BGs and arenas, it's a bit different for me. I say it's D tier in open world because your pet is like pathing is really shit. You have a lot of roots everywhere, which very much depletes your damage, and your pets have like low HP, so they do get bursted down by anything, so you have to res it a lot. But yeah, there's a lot of problems for BM Hunter. Some people are happy with that, about that, because the BM Hunter is really, I'm not going to say low skill, because again I think there is nuances to be having, but I think it's like one of the, maybe the easiest spec of that if you want to learn PvP, right? But Vicious Hunt, damage increased by 10% for Beast Mastery. Pack Leader is not really the thing that I'm playing currently. I'm playing Dark Ranger because it adds more damage in general, where Pack Leader does add up a bit of damage, but it's very much you can't really see the damage. Like it doesn't feel like you're doing damage. You have better defenses though, because again you're healing whenever you're going to Aspect of the Turtle. Your duration is also increased whenever you're low HP. It's interesting, right? Vicious Hunt, damage decreased by 10% for survival, which I read that and I found it very funny. I'm going to show you guys. So when Vicious Hunt damage reaches a certain point, it can cause a kill command to dominate survival rotation, which is laughable because Pack Leader is like literally around kill command. So if you don't want them to use a lot of kill command or dominate the rotation, why bother give them Pack Leader? Like, the basis of the spec is literally to do kill command, like the hero taunt, excuse me, is to do a lot of kill command, or else you will just lose a lot of the value of what pack leader would give. These adjustment and subsequent compensation are meant to ensure pack leaders and survival hunter are utilizing the other tools at their disposal. I'm agreeing with you guys, but pack leader is literally kill command. If you're not doing kill commands, why pick pack leader? Because pack leader is vicious hunt. Vicious hunt is activating by kill command, and your next 2 kill commands are going to add up damage. So obviously they want you to press 3 times kill commands to have like the procs utilized, but also to make the proc possible. So your first kill command is getting the proc, and the other 2 kill commands would be then adding the damage towards that proc. Very annoying to do, but it just is how it is. And survival hunters that pick pack leader has to do kill commands, or else you just are not utilizing the spec, the hero spec. So they want you guys to use something else. Look, what they are going to say is they want you to play Sentinel, but in PvP Sentinel kind of sucks because nobody's really staying into the Lunar Storm. Let's be real. But it's interesting, right? Whole of the pack critical strike damage bonus increased to 5%. For Beast Mastery it was 3%, and for Survival Hunters it has been 11%. It was 7%, so it's a buff towards that. Furious Assault is damage in bonus increased to 60% for Survival, so I'm going to show you what it is. I can show you right here. So we have Furious Assault, which is this one. It's interesting, right? So consuming Frenzy Tier, so this is the Frenzy Tier, so whenever you're doing a pet basic attack, your next kill command will strike a second time. If you're consuming it, you're going to get, it's a 50% chance, so it's not always the case, but you will get your Raptor Strike or Mongoose Strike reduced by 100%, so it doesn't cost any focus, and it will deal 30% more damage. So instead of 30%, it will be 60%, so it will deal insane amount of damage. People are going to play around that, and I understand they want you to play pack leader for those tools, which is interesting, and it's still better in PvP to pick this and Sentinel, for sure. But it kind of sucks that it's not really the essence of pack leader. This is like a little point out of the talents, and yes, it is an important one, but I would not have guessed that they want you to be literally playing around Ferocious Assault, because then they would be replacing Vicious Hunt, in my opinion. It would be like the other way around. You have also a buff to Call the Herd, which is a very big buff. Let's not forget, Killshot deals an additional 60% over 6 seconds. That is a big buff, but again, they don't want you to play pack leader around kill command, which is fine, but in PvP you will always play pack leader as Survival Hunter. I think so. Sentinel is kind of dead. It doesn't do that much damage, and it's AoE, and also it is a radius of 10 yards that is not movable. So if the enemy just moves out of it, you just lose the potential of Lunar Storm doing good damage. So it kind of sucks. It is what it is. Beast Mastery is still going. I think that is the question. You can play pack leader and have like bigger. You can pick pack leader and have bigger, how it's called, barb shots, which is interesting. It does more damage. But the issue is, if you wanna, like, if you're doing a 1v1, you wanna do barb shots to maintain the buff. But most likely, you're going to override the bigger barb shot. So if you're doing a second barb shot above those bigger barb shots from First Assault, you're going to override the First Assault barb shot. So you're going to have a lesser effect, which is kind of not that great. So I know the video is going to be long, but I want to give you like all the information. Like, again, I can say like, oh, it's good, but I want to show you why it's good, those buffs. Overall, it's a buff for Beast Mastery. It's good. I think Dark Ranger is better for me right now. I'll be testing Pack Leader a bit more. But yeah, I think it's more usable in general. Mage got a buff on Living Bomb, 30%. We're not going to live the nightmare of Living Bomb in pre-patch or in pre-season, so that's not going to happen. Pre-patch Living Bomb was disgusting, but since the patch is out, Living Bomb is not doing any damage anymore in PvP. Power Blast damage increased by 5%. That's not enough in PvP. Power Blast really tickles right now. Flame Strike damage increased by, that's AoE Mythic plus Mythic 0 above, which is good, I guess, for them, but in PvP you're not going to utilize that. Frostfire bolt damage increased by 25% for fire, which is good. They kind of needed that, but I don't know if it's enough. And you're not really going to spam that either, so. Burden of Power can no longer be double dipped by spell queuing. For Sun Fury. Arcane Phoenix damage dealt reduced by 10% for Arcane. Arcane Soul base duration reduced to 2 seconds, whilst 3 seconds. So overall nerf to Arcane mages. Retribution Paladin got a nerf, but also a buff. So the nerf would be the mastery, so it is reduced by 10%. For example, at level 80, 100 mastery rating now grants 1.35% mastery, and it was 1.5. So you would have less value for the amount of mastery you would get. That's a nerf. All holy spell damage increased by 5%. So the damage, I would say, if you are still like going for mastery, it's going to be still okay, but I guess you get punished a bit more if you went for haste, since the little mastery you get will be reduced. So it's a tough thing. I think overall it's a think and buff, because you do get 5% more damage on holy spells, which is like your final verdicts. Your Wake of Ashes also counts to that, and in general it's going to be interesting to as well to play around. So it's interesting, right? Discipline Priest got also a few buffs towards PvE. So you have your Oracle's Discipline Priest preventive measures also gets increases, like Power Ward Shield absorption by 40% instead of 25%. Atonement healing is now back to 100% outside of the raid. It was 70%. That's something that they always yo-yo around though, for PvE at least. So yeah, good luck, priests. They're going to nerf it back to 70% once they realize that, oh, okay, it's maybe too strong. So it's always like this, especially once raids are out. Again, outside raids, so I guess for Mythic Plus, Mythic 0, but they always like tend to nerf it afterwards. So fix an issue where Atonement critical healing was not increased by the correct amount outside of raid, so it is a buff, I think. In party members healing. Shadow Word Pain and Purge the Wicked damage increased by 20%. That's quite big, especially for PvP. This is good. This is really strong. Void Weaver Shadow Priest Void Blast damage increased by 20%. That's good, but I think right now Archon is the better spec. They need to do more. I think it just is the utility from Archon is really strong. Like getting those Mind Spike Insanities, Mind Flay Insanities, procs, like those stacks that you get. You can then use it. That is way too strong to not use it. I'm not going to call them like a nerf, that they need to nerf Archon. I think Archon is just that much like more fun to play because of like those insanity procs. Like it's really cool to have like back-to-back Mind Flay Insanities, which you rarely had in Dragonflight. Shaman got a buff towards Elemental Shaman. Mastery Elemental Overload bonus to all elemental and physical damage increased by 35%. That is massive because, again, I might make a video about it because I do also play Elemental Shaman. Earthshock is big. Like, people are playing around Earthshock right now. It does a lot of damage, and Mastery kind of helps you to that for that because the damage increase will help also Earthshock, which is massive. The all damage reduced by 6% is to compensate, I think, the overall sentiment that Elemental Shaman does a lot of damage in PvE. In PvP, it's a bit less, but it's still there. I'm looking forward for those changes. I think I need to do a lot more testing. I will be doing that because I did now Enhancement Shaman, so now I have time until Season 1 to do more testing around Elemental Shaman, because Shaman is really now my class. Like, I'm having a lot of fun on it. And I'm grinding it, and it's very fun to do so. Elemental Shaman, I think there are like multiple builds that you can play, but there is like one build that is like heads and shoulders above it. But I need to make a video about it to do more testing and to show you guys in practice. Stormbringer getting a buff on, like I said, below 5 targets, but above 5 targets is going to be a nerf. I think overall it's going to be a buff towards your damage if you like doing PvP. So that's a good thing. Warlock, all the ability damage increased by 5% for destruction. That's deserved. I do feel like destruction Warlock is like falling behind, but I think it's kind of weird because Chaos Bolts are not really hitting and critting for that much. Like critting because obviously it only crits. I don't know, man. I feel like they need a bit more. I think it's scaling at the end of the day. Like if you had more haste or more mastery, it would feel a bit different. But right now, since the stats are very low, you don't get like a lot of the power that you would have in Dragonflight. So it will scale up. Like in season 1, it will be a bit like okay. In season 2, it will be way better. Season 3 it will be way better, and season 4 it will get nerfed. That is the life of a warlock right now. Destruction warlock at least. The big PvP changes. So people were like excited for feral druids. Now feral druids are going to be a bit less excited. So rip damage increased by 15%, rake damage increased by 15% as well. So the builds with Wildstalker is buffed pretty much because you're playing around your bleeds, which is cool. But you got a nerf on Saberjaws, effectiveness now reduced by 50% in PvP. Saberjaws is this talent, so when you expect extra energy on Ferocious Bite, or you can say Ravage, you're getting 80% increased damage. Now for 2 points you only get 40%. So in PvE you spend 2 points to get 80%. In PvP you're going to use 2 points to get like those 40%. It's still going to be played. It's still going to be strong, but you're nowhere near those 3 million bites anymore. So that's going to be nerfed. It's still going to be strong, but it's nerfed. And you also get a nerf on Tiger's Fury increased damage, I think. Which one is it? Taste for Bloods, damage increased to Ferocious Bite during Tiger's Fury is decreased by 50%. Taste of Blood. So here is the talent. So Ferocious Bite deals 12% increased damage and an additional 12% during Tiger's Fury. So there's only like 1%. So it's a 33% nerf pretty much. You get a nerf on Tiger's Fury, so it would be 6% instead of 12%. Again, it's actually a huge nerf. But it still is going to be playable. Druid of the Claw is really fun from what I've seen. I do want to play feral druids. I am just scared because they do suffer the same fate as Enhancement Shaman. I already play Enhancement Shaman, so they tend to be nerfed very quickly once it's getting strong. If it's getting strong, it's getting nerfed very quickly, and I'm afraid of that. And I don't want to like suffer like with 2 classes. I do want to play feral druid, but it's tough, man. Like I hesitate on it. Like I'm like really in analysis paralysis for feral druids. I understand like right now it's very fun, but I'm scared of the what if it's getting nerfed and it's unplayable, for example. Then it would be a bit less fun for me. Balanced Druid, Lunar Sculling now increases Starfire damage by 50% instead of 65. So this nerf 50% and this nerf which is 20% is quite big. So it's 35% nerf in total on Starfire, which is yeah, it's a shame, but it is what it is, right? It's a big nerf for Starfire. They do really want you to play around Star Surge only, yeah. Umbral Embrace also here now increases damage of Wrath and Starfire by 40%. And it was 75%, so even more of a nerf Starfire. I think you can still play around Wrath though, but even then it's also nerfed. So they really want you to play around Star Surge, go back to be a Eclipse machine and try to survive outside of Eclipse. It's still going to be strong, don't get me wrong, but I don't know why they do that though. I really like to have like the builders being strong, but obviously if the builders are stronger than the spenders, then you have a problem. I don't know if it's currently the case. Frost Mage, Iceland's damage increased by 45% instead of 75%. Those Frost Mages are crying right now. So instead of doing 1 million damage on a Iceland's, it would be like 30% less. So 1 million, 30%, 700k. It's big. It's a good nerf. It's actually a good nerf because Frost Mage, their damage is really easy to do. Just need to have your Frost Orb and then spam Icelands kind of feel. Obviously you have your Glacial Spike, you have your Ray of Frost builds, but yeah, it's tough, but it's deserved. Like right now everyone puts Frost Mage in S tier. In my books it would also be S tier, but yeah, it's interesting that they are not nerfing everything, so I'm very happy about that. I think like those precise nerfs are always going to be very good because then your spec is not getting destroyed. Just one aspect of that spec that would be like Icelands is getting nerfed, so you could always like say, look, maybe the Frostbolt or Frostfire Bolt build is the way to go. Or maybe the Glacial Spike and the Ray of Frost build is the way to go. Or you're playing still the same build with Icelands and I think Ray of Ice or Ray of Frost, I don't even know the name anymore, is still the way to go. So I don't know. That's for the Frost Mages to decide. I eat Frost Mages for days as an Enhancement Shaman though. Give me those Frost Mages in open world. I'm having fun with them. Monk, Master of Harmony. Manifestation is now 50% effective in PvP combat. I don't know what it is. I don't bother to look it up. I think it's a big buff, a big nerf though. It's a big nerf, obviously, but I don't know if it's like a big thing. Manifestation. Brewmaster Chi burst damage reduced by 30% in PvP combat. Was it that strong? That I need to look because I don't know. Like I don't want to give like my opinion about something I don't know. Chi burst 280% damage. I don't know. Chi burst here increases vitality stored. I don't know. I actually don't know if it's. Is it that strong? So people are in the comment section below. Please let me know if like the nerf is big. It seems like an unnecessary nerf, but whatever. Mistweaver getting a nerf on their Peace Weaver revival, 33%. So it is a 3-minute CD. You get a 1.5 minute CD. So now it will be a 2-minute CD or a 2.1 minute CD, which is fine. I think it's 2.1 minute CD or 2.2 minute CD now. It is a good nerf, but you get also a buff like compensation. Life Cocoon is now even more unbreakable. So whenever I see Life Cocoon on a target, I just switch targets. Except if I know like we are overkilling, which is not happening a lot. But if I see a Life Cocoon, I switch target. So it is good, but it's like again made to not break. Like Life Cocoon is made to not break. So you just wait 10 seconds. And then switch back. Enveloping Mist now can no longer be dispelled. That's actually a huge nerf. What I like to do as a shaman is always purge those enveloping mists because those heal for a lot, but also buff the other aspects of the healing from Mistweaver. So if you do play Mistweaver, you know what I mean. But whenever you're putting enveloping mist, you get more healing done by other aspects of your kit, right? So it's a big nerf. It's a big buff towards them. Holy Priest, Prayer of Mending healing increased by 65% in PvP combat. That's big, I think. Is Holy Priest that behind? I actually don't know. It does feel like I see less Holy Priests. But like if it's now 61% spell power, it will be 65% more effective. So you take 65% of that, it would be around 40%, and then you add it back, so it would be 100% of spell power pretty much. Plus also the Prayer of Mending initial healing, obviously. Yeah, I think it's okay. It's a good buff. I don't know if the Holy Priest is going to be meta, but right now I need to do a lot more testing in PvP, like in arenas to know that. I think in RBGs or in solo queue RBGs or even just in general random BGs, it's very hard to test like healers and how strong they are. So obviously this is going to be needed to be a bit more tested. Fury Warriors are in shambles. Like I said, it was going to be nerfed, but it's not like nerfed. It is nerfed, but it is like the bleed damage nerfed. Only Fury damage reduced by 20% in PvP combat, and Thunderous Roar damage reduced by 15% in PvP combat. I'm going to say that people are going to just to adapt. They're going to play Slayer still. I think Slayer is still the meta spec you're going to play. You could easily decide to play around another aspect of your build, right? You can play around your not bleed, but you can play around your onslaught instead. So you could easily do this, right? Let's take a few talents here and there. To give you an idea. I want to give you an idea because I think it's like a better thing for you guys to understand where the buffs and nerfs are coming from. So if you're playing with Odin's Fury, this would be pretty much what you would take, right? At the below talents. Obviously you would take Bloodborne, but I am with the idea of maybe you could just not play Thunderous Roar. It is a 15% nerf, and it's not like the reason why you're doing a Thunderous Roar. You're playing around the bleed increase, right? So that's still an aspect that you have. I don't know if you can see right now. You can see a little part of the thing, right? I think you can see enough. So for example, if you're taking Reckless Abandon or Anger Management, I think Reckless Abandon is quite cool with the build I'm going to show. You don't need like Swift Strikes. You can still play with like Mastery Increase, which is like 2% increase on damage pretty much. You can play this, right? And still Blade Storm. And this would work. But you could also say, look, Odin's Fury, now the damage is decreased. So why bother like increase it even more? You could just like say, look, I want to have more recklessness, for example, or you want to have like a bit of damage with your Blade Storm, although this is not that good, to be fair. You can still play around that. But I think that the idea would be to maybe play around your attack, auto attack damage to be increased, and your speed as well. Of your auto attacks, that could be also a play to do. You can also still play with this, but I maybe would say like you can maybe give you a full-on damage around your rampages, your raging blows and your bloodthirst, or your crushing blows and your bloodbaths, and play around champion spear and get all the upgrades of champion spear. That is still an option. Or you can say, look, I disregard the nerfs, I don't care, it's 20%, who cares? I still have like the damage increase from a Thunderous Roar that is going to still give me 30%. I still have Odin's Fury doing insane damage because I can proc it with my avatar, or I can do another Odin's Fury by itself. That still is going to be the case. I do feel like currently Fury Warriors are overkilling their targets, so it's not going to be drastic. It's not going to jump from... Right now, I would say if some people are putting it S tier, it's not going to jump to B tier. It's still going to be A tier, obviously. But we'll have to see. My tier list is not set in stone right now, so I'll be discussing it once we have like a bit more testing on the arenas side of things, and also the RBG side of things next week. Arms Warrior auto attack damage no longer decreased by an additional 12% in PvP combat. It's okay. It's a little bit of a buff, but it's not going to be drastic. So overall, I'm very happy about Enhancement Shaman. It has been a long video, but I wanted to show you guys with talents and with like examples, because I can read it for you guys, but then you could also read it for yourself, right? I want to give you a bit of my insights on those changes and how I feel about it and how drastically it would affect them in PvP combat. Like for example, balance druids, I think it will be affected by a lot because starfires are not going to be deadly anymore, or not as deadly as before. And star surges are a bit better, so you're going to play a bit more about your star surges right now. Feral Druid is getting nerfed. I showed you why it got nerfed and how big the nerfs are. I'm showing you everything so you can also just listen and see for yourself what the changes are. So you can then test next week and say, oh, Togri was right about it, or Togri was wrong about it. You could also say that I'm wrong, and that's good, but we'll be knowing it probably next week. Again, thank you for watching this video. Really, I appreciate you. Has been a long video. I'm very sorry, but hopefully you did learn something. And yeah, I like to do like those kinds of discussion videos. I give you a bit more insight about the things that I do discuss. Again, have a great day. Bye.